Hi, my name is Vish Abrams. I'm the chief architect at Heroku, and I'm here to talk to you in this 10-minute take about how enterprise platforms are changing their development strategy to align with the new efforts that are coming out of the AI revolution. I think we're at a very, very fascinating time in the industry. Most importantly, the realm of software developers, the number of people and the type of people that are building and deploying software has been changing dramatically over the past few months. You may have heard this term. I think it was Andrej Karpathy who coined it, of vibe coding. And there's this understanding that now with natural language, you can step into a development environment with an LLM and start to create something, even if you have no previous development experience. And what we're seeing with seasoned developers is that their productivity is going through the roof. We've seen percentage increases reported all across the industry. Google, Meta, everyone is talking about how much their developer productivity is improving using these new AI tools and models. But I think when you think about what effect that has on a business, you start to need to answer some very important questions. So first of all, how do businesses need to prepare for this future where the number of developers is growing dramatically, the amount of software produced is growing dramatically? And secondly, how do you organize your teams properly to deal with this new wave of software development and start building the right things? I think it's a classic mistake when you're doing business process modeling to assume that just because you've increased your efficiency in one area of the system, that your overall business productivity is going to change. And I think we're starting to see these bottlenecks show up in the software world, especially. So you might have an individual developer that's able to produce 50% more code, which suddenly puts a lot more load on your QA teams, your testing teams, and your other approaches. Another example is, for the longest time when we're building products, we've always been constrained by the amount of different iterations or versions we can do of something. And when that constraint goes away, the question now becomes, how are we sure that we actually are building the right thing? We can build anything. We could build everything at once. How do we pick the right things and invest in the areas that are important so that we actually achieve the business goals? So these types of questions are coming up. In addition, the whole concept of vibe coding, we've seen incredible success at getting from 0 to 1. We've seen a whole host of new people be able to produce the first version of software. And this ties into that same business question of, if you have 100 different versions that could be produced, how do you pick the right one? And then even more importantly, how do you take the right one and take it through the entire life cycle of software development? When you're dealing with a group of seasoned software developers, there's strategies around continuous integration, continuous delivery, all of this sort of day one, day two operations that are associated with building software that are very natural to that group. When that group becomes, your finance people or your sales people or your marketing people that don't have the software development experience, they may be able to get the first version of something out very quickly, but then they don't have the expertise to take and iterate on that piece of software to take it through the various stages of production that are necessary. This is an area that we've been focusing on heavily at Heroku because, funnily enough, the entire history of Heroku was built on this idea that there's going to be a whole realm of new software developers starting to deploy software. This happened in the late 2000s. And particularly, it was around the creation of a project called Ruby on Rails, which made it easier for new people to get involved in software development. In addition, the web was the big thing back in the 2000s. And so a bunch more effort was going into building software that was going to be deployed at scale in ways that it had not been before. Heroku was built around this foundation of, let's enable that new group of software engineers to be better at building and to build faster and to build the right thing and to build in a way that allows them to deploy over time. Now we're going through this similar transition around AI. There's a whole new group of developers that are out here building new software and need to learn those same lessons that new group of developers learned a dozen years ago. In fact, one of the areas that Heroku has been very successful is in distilling the principles of what makes good deployable software into what you might call a manifesto. So many years ago, Heroku produced this manifesto called the 12-Factor App Manifesto, which congealed the key principles of building a scalable application into things that a software engineer needed to know. And now those same lessons need to be learned by software AI agents that are starting to help us build the software. So those lessons need to be learned by the developers that are using these new agents, and the agents themselves need to be moved in the direction of supporting those principles, those same principles that allow you to build manageable software over time. And so really the trick here is not only enabling humans and agents to work together to build software, but how to make that software the right kind of software to solve business value and to continue to solve business value over time. So that starts with having the right framework, the right set of principles. And then it continues by having a platform that allows you to sort of remove a lot of the guesswork about how to build and deploy software. So the more that you can constrain the non-deterministic part of the system and make it about deploying software consistently in well-known ways that we know are going to be manageable over time, the better you're going to do. Toward that end, we've started building a bunch of features at Heroku. Most recently, we've released a product called Managed Inference and Agents. And that is giving the ability for this new wave of software to be built in an extremely effortless way. So users, when they're wanting to add agentic capabilities to their existing software, can tap right into the current generation of powerful language models and include it in their applications in the same way that they would use any other piece of library software for modern development. So they don't need to learn any new special languages. They can write it in whatever language they want, and they just get access and then can deploy it easily on Heroku with minimal effort. This is one of the many ways that we're stepping into this future where AI is helping to write and build software. Another thing that we're doing is modernizing that 12-factor manifesto that I talked about to help prepare it for this future of AI-driven applications, and also to tailor it specifically to being something that can be used as a reference by large language models. So we can give the language models a scaffold, or the agents a scaffold by which they can build software in the right way. In the same way that you would instruct, say, a new developer how to build the right software, you can instruct the agent how to build software in a way that works well for businesses. And that's really the sweet spot of where Heroku, who lives in this agentic AI-driven world, is let's congeal those principles, get the right things in place so that business software can be deployed and run effortlessly in this agentic world. Okay, so let's take an example. It's very easy for me to use the agentic coding platforms today to create something simple like a snake game. Now, we know that large language models are non-deterministic in their output. Fortunately, they're very good at building software. So if I ask it to build a snake game, even with minimal instructions, I will get something that functions and actually meets the goal of what I asked for in that particular instance. But what you find is if you generated, say, 1,000 versions of that snake game, they might all work, but maybe only 2 or 3 of them would be built in a way that makes them easy to extend. So usually when you're writing software, you don't just build it and deploy it once. That's actually the easy part. The hard part is, how do you scale it up? How do you add new features in the future? How do you do it in a way that keeps it manageable? And there are certain ways that you can build an application that are aligned with those longer term goals, and other ways that aren't. Without the proper sort of guidance, a new developer or an agent will actually tend to build things in a way that doesn't prepare for those future states. So the ideal thing to do here in this case is to instruct the agent to start with the right principles. I talked about the 12-factor app manifesto. So really what we're trying to do is get the agents to build applications in the same way as a seasoned software engineer would. And that isn't just about what it does today. It's about what it's going to be doing tomorrow and the next day and the next day. Heroku sits in a place where it really prepares the system to work for the long term. All of our tooling is built around not just day 1, day 0, day 1 operations, but day 2 operations. How do you operate the system? How do you scale it? How do you make changes to the code base? How do you deploy those changes? How do you put it into a pipeline where it moves through different environments for testing, et cetera? And that's really where Heroku shines, and why it's such a valuable place to be doing this agentic vibe coding work as it moves from the experimental phase into real business value. So we've talked about a lot of things here. We talked about vibe coding. We've talked about how to derive business value out of this new wave of AI applications. And hopefully I've conveyed that Heroku is a great place to make all this work. I'd love for you to try it out. We support any language that you can imagine. Most importantly, Python, Ruby, Go, Java, C Sharp. So whatever language your developers are working in, they can try today. We'd love for you to come in, try it out. There's getting started guides. It takes a matter of minutes to get a piece of software from an idea into a deployed and available on the internet. So we'd love for you to join this journey with us and join the AI revolution.